Hey, Father Taylor here on a rainy Thursday afternoon, April 18th, and it's time for your weekly eBlast and weekend update. A couple of things to talk about today. Uh, One is something you probably know about, but need to think about. And the other is one that you think, I already know this, but you might want to rethink that too. How about that? Is that confusing? Okay, so here's the first one. That is, we have a tapestry concert coming up on the first weekend of May. That's Saturday and Sunday. So, for those of you who already know or don't know, tapestry has been going on for a number of years, predates even Paula, but it's a pulled together choir from people from all over the place who come in to sing a variety of kinds of numbers. There's some show tunes, some famous tunes, religious stuff, patriotic stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff which is done in large groups, duos, solos. I mean, it's really kind of a fabulous event. They bring in some great instrumentalists to help accompany it just to make sure everything goes great. And Paula, of course, is the inspiration behind it all. But she does it for a reason. It's not just to showboat some great talent, it is to raise money for the Kateri ministry, that is the Kateri medical clinics out there in Kafanchan area of Nigeria. Now you might think, well, why is that so big? I just want to connect with you two different things. One, Nigeria. You hear about these things in the news, and this is the region where all that bad stuff tends to happen. The north and slightly northern of Kafanchan, but the problems with kids being kidnapped. I mean, there's some desperate folks and desperate situations going on there, which, unless they had the Kateri medical clinics and the hospital stuff that they do, there isn't anything to be offered. And so this is an amazing ministry in that if you give a dollar, nearly 98 cents of that dollar goes exactly to the very thing you want, whether it's medications or paying a doctor, a nurse, or just be able to have a medical clinics to sustain the little hospital they have. I mean, that's amazing. 98 cents going directly to what you want it to go to. This is largely a Muslim area. Christians are the minority out there. And so here's this Christian expression of hope going on in a troubled area. So it's very big. Now, while we host it at the church, it technically isn't a church event. It's a ministry event, but it's also a how do you help people in the wider world event. You have friends who watch the news that if you said, have you heard what happened in Nigeria? They would probably say, you mean those kids getting kidnapped? They know about things like that. Many of your friends would love to help in that situation, but they don't know how. Well, here's a way they can. They come to a concert, they hear great music. They're going to meet Bishop Dogo and his wife. They're going to talk to the guy that founded the whole thing, Tom Furr, your guy who was my predecessor. He found that you're going to hear in very short periods, little clips, you're going to hear about what's going on. And those people are going to be able to make a difference. It's the kind of thing I wish we were doing this in a way at the Bushnell. And so like the place was packed out and it was a huge fundraiser. Think about the impact of how much money that can raise. Last year, when we did this, we raised about $24,000 in just these two concerts. Your friends can be a part of that. You may already give. So that's why you got to bring a friend. You got to say, hey, come with us Saturday night. Hey, come with us Sunday afternoon. Let's go hear this. And it's not like, it's about helping people. That's the invitation that I would like you to consider making to people you know. And that's for the Kateri medical clinics and the hospital, but that's the tapestry coming up on the first weekend of May. So that's a serving Jesus in the world. That's right. That's just what we do. And you can invite people to. Second thing I want to talk to you about is I have a retreat that I've planned and that we're still putting together, but I think it could be extremely important, not just for some people, but for our whole church. And I'm hoping that it's the beginning of something that is big in our region. Here's what I mean. The, the retreat is about worship. But it's not about a technical thing like give me the history of worship or give me just the theological meaning of the word worship, but it's about the experience of worship and how we can actually get better at it. You say, get better at worship. What do you mean by that? Most of us come to church, and we and many people outside of our church will call going to church an act of worship, which it is. We go to worship. We go to basically do two things. On my side, which is the smaller of the two things, on my side, I'm reminding myself that there is only one person, one object, one source of life that I worship. The reason I need to do that is because I'll get distracted and think it's about my job or my income or having the perfect family. I will worship a lot of things, including myself as the being on the top of the worship pedestal. And so when I go to worship, I remind myself of who I am and who God is. But most of what worship is about we do this to God. It's what God receives. You might have heard it, the expression, we play and sing and pray to an audience of one. Worship is not so much about what do I get, but as much as what do I give to God. So that's kind of like, I call that the textbook explanation. But what happens in worship is that we recognize that where two or three are gathered, Jesus is in the midst of them, of us, and that's by the Holy Spirit. But what we often fail to realize is that God is interacting with us in the act of worship. When you come into God's presence, the Spirit is right there, and the Spirit often is interacting with us. We are often not expecting that to happen. We kind of act like sometimes like it's a one-sided thing, like we sing and these words go up and we hope that somehow God finds them. No, there is something that happens in the presence of God when we worship that this retreat will help us become more aware of. It can be totally life-changing when all of a sudden you realize that in your worship, God is speaking. And it's most often beyond words. There's healing that goes on. There's a sense of expectation. There's the receiving of being loved, known and loved by God. It all happens in the act of worship. So we can attend a worship service, or we can learn to be worshipers, where the heart in worship is where our hearts and the heart of God meet. In this retreat, I think we have the possibility of coming together to experience that. For some of you, it will be a reminder and a refreshing that it still goes on from something way past that you might have had before but forgotten. For other people, it'll be a brand new experience. I didn't know that I could know God in this way. How powerful is this? But it will deepen our entire congregation's ability to worship. The more people we have who come, I guarantee you, the more impact it will have on our church, not just on Sundays, but in every aspect of our life. That's how big I think it is. I am going to be a co-leader with this with a person whose name is Renee Story. You can look her up. Her official ministry is she and her husband are part of Anchor and Key. She works a lot with the folks over at Wintonberry. She was the interim worship leader there. She leads, I can't tell you how many worship retreats she has led. She most recently came to one of our first Friday events, and we had a tremendous, powerful night of worship that night. But now she's going to lead us, not just teaching us, but lead us and help us to understand how we enter into that. I think it could be really life-changing. I really do. And so I want to invite you to that on Saturday, May 11th. I will be there early. I'll have coffee and some croissants and baked goods and some fruit and yogurt, all that kind of stuff. We'll have that if you want to come a little early and get yourself settled in. But the retreat will start at 9. We'll have breaks. You'll have time to talk to each other, to experience that. But we're going to go from listening and singing to participating and worshiping to worshiping. Right? It's going to be a kind of a progression if the Lord gives us permission to do that. So I want to call your attention. You should think about like calling up some church friends or other people and helping to motivate them to come out and worship, to go to this retreat. I hope it will really be something which changes, kind of the current course of our church. And I'm hoping some folks, particularly worship leaders from other churches, come to do that. So those are the two big announcements I got. We're getting ready to get back to our Balfa programming. That will come in a couple of weeks. So we just left that to you. And thanks so much for all that you do and for your prayers and for your ministries. God bless you.